I meant his grandfather. I meant his grandfather.
We're beginning the festivities, so direct your attention over this way.
Once again, Brooke talks, nobody listens.
Let me just get seated. I just got here. Give me a second.
Time will tell on that.
Not to be put in the newspaper.
Okay. She doesn't talk very loudly, so please everybody listen.
But she's effective.
But she's effective, right?
Thank you. Thank you.
Silent but powerful.
I can be a little loud. I'm just not very good at it. So, good afternoon, Duke Island Park. Welcome, colleagues, guests, esteemed members of the press. Jean. My name is Rikki Lyn Haus, and I am the youngest member of the Doris Group. And I've been here since July when our all-volunteer group was conceived. Today we have requested your presence to help us celebrate a belated birthday of this very park's benefactor, Doris Duke. Amid the inconceivable outrage at Duke Farms, we at Doris, the demolition of residence is senseless, believe that celebrating a belated birthday party during the holiday season can remind the Doris Duke Charitable Foundation of its very own beginnings. These trustees have chosen to abandon Miss Duke's original vision of a community engagement and a selfless spirit for more self-indulgent methods of mismanagement at the very estate she called home. In fact, the Doris Group has observed the farms and foundations defend their egocentric interests at all three of Hillsborough's Preservation Commission meetings. Our members often became the objects of their disrespect in the process. We maintain that the Historic Preservation Commission's decision to grant a demolition permit against public interest will forever be wrong. It was a choice made baselessly, often with board members accepting the farm's words without any evidence. The unrest has not diminished, and the house is being dismantled as we speak. Their overconfidence is disturbing, and it can't be accepted, and that is why our fight continues. The Doris Group will continue to address this injustice by actively working on legal, fiscal, and social aspects to change the fate of the whole Duke estate. Starting with the crown jewel, the country manor, the place she called home, and so did her father. We will not yield in our mission to save Duke Mansion, and instead we will carry on in strides to provide to our communities the complete legacy of the Duke family. Now at this time I would love to introduce Liz McConville. She's a former employee, and today she speaks on very Miss Doris Duke's behalf.
Well, as you can tell, I have no speech, got nothing, but I wanted to thank you all for coming and for showing your support. I worked for Doris Duke for over 20 years. I knew her very well. I knew what her wishes were. I knew what kind of a life she had. As most of you know, Doris's life was not all happy to any degree. She was a very lonely person. She had no siblings. She had no relatives. She had no children. She pretty much had no friends, because sooner or later her friends would ask her for money. She had two husbands, both of whom betrayed her in one way or another. What she had basically was money. She had a lot of money, and she was very, very generous with that money. I'm sure I don't have to tell most of you how much Doris gave to the world, to the state of New Jersey, and to Hillsborough in particular. During her lifetime, she gave away over $400 million to charity. And what a lot of people don't know is that she gave away millions of dollars as individual gifts. I mean, Doris, because she was known worldwide, she would get mail like crazy, making requests for money, for help. And very few of those people were turned down. It was all done anonymously, never made the paper, never had her name attached to it. I know this because I opened the mail, I signed the checks that went out. So, you know, she would never want anyone to know that, but she did give a lot of money. Her whole life was basically spent, she had like 3 passions. One was preservation. She spent her life preserving things, repairing things, even going, when she traveled on her honeymoon, on her first 2-year honeymoon, where she traveled all over the world, she would pick up art and things that you wouldn't even believe, you know? And then when I found out what she paid for them and then what they were worth, she was not stupid. And a lot of these things she bought because she knew what they were worth, and she did it, more importantly, to preserve them. And that's what her life was about. She founded the Newport Preservation Society. So I'm just bringing that up because Doris's main passion was preservation. Her second passion was her home at Duke Farms. A lot of people don't realize that she did spend nearly all of her time at Duke Farms. That was her home. She had 5 houses throughout the country. She had 1 home. This was the home that she spent her entire life in, the home that her father built. And any time I was with her outside of New Jersey, she was always anxious to go home. She called home, meaning Duke Farms, just about every day. I know because I'd get the calls from Hawaii. And not at very opportune times, but she was always checking in. She was anxious. This is where her other passion was. Her favorite dogs are always kept at Duke Farms. There was never a time when that house was neglected in any way, shape, or form. If something was broken, we had it repaired. If something was old, she had every pipe in the house replaced. She had the electricity updated. Everything was kept up to date. That house was always pristine. The only ones that had complete access to her home were her dogs. Her dogs could do no wrong. Nobody else could do any right. But she did. I mean, those were her 3 passions. And now we come to Doris's death. And believe me, I read every last will and testament she ever had. There was never a last will until her final will. And I'd have to review it, and I would see everything. And in spite of what the attorneys for the township, the attorneys for the foundation had to say about what Doris wanted done with that house, there is no place, there is not one word in her will where Doris said, I want my house torn down. I want my main home demolished. I want you to forget I ever lived. Never. I mean, so many times, even going through that house at Duke Farms, she would say, after she's gone, she wanted everyone, the public, to see her gardens, which brings me to her gardens. Doris loved those gardens. They were exquisite, they were world-renowned, and they were beautiful. I mean, ask anyone here that worked at the gardens. They knew what those gardens meant to her. She wanted those gardens open to the public in perpetuity. And now, first they took down the gardens. They dismantled them under the guise of they were going to restore them for the public. Don't worry, they'll be back. Well, guess what? I knew the day they took them down, they were not coming back. She deprived the world of the gardens, and that was pretty sad. The next thing they decide is they're going to demolish her house. And that's when I stepped in. And that was when Doris was found. And thanks to all the members of Doris, we have hung in there through thick and through thin, through a lot of hard times, difficult meetings, and many of you were at some of the meetings, where every time I opened my mouth, it was hearsay. And I'd say, no, it is not hearsay. It was from her mouth to me, and your time is up. Move along, we have to move along. And, having to face their attorneys that would roll their eyes and sigh and moan and groan. Not one of them ever knew Doris Duke. They have completely wiped out my emotional feelings about Doris. Well, Doris was a person. And what bothers me is what's going to happen next. Is it just going to be called the Farms? We're going to take Duke's name away from it? That's not right. Doris left a legacy for a reason. And we can't allow that to just be destroyed. It's wrong. It's wrong in so many ways. And I don't think people would have even known about it or been aware of it, except for Doris. And thanks to people like Rikki, we got the word out. We have worked a long time. And still, we may lose. And we probably will lose. But we put up the good fight. And by the way, the foundation that Doris left her money to preserve everything, has completely gone against her wishes, what she would have wanted. This is not what she would have wanted. I know that, and a lot of people know that too. And they used her money to fight us. They had their attorneys that are very well paid. And we had David, who is not paid. It was just too hard to fight them. We didn't have a chance, but the fact that they were using her money to destroy what meant so much to her, it's just wrong. The whole thing is wrong, and we should not have to put up with this. It's so wrong. If there were any way that Doris could have come back from the dead, and if anybody could have, she would have found a way. The first thing she would have done was to get rid of both the foundations. The second thing she would have done was taken her home back, and she would have restored it and preserved it. That's what she wanted done, and she would have opened it to the public. She would have restored the gardens. She would have rehired some of her former employees at the gardens that knew so much and knew how much they meant to her. And so, I just want to say that we fought the good fight. We tried. And happy birthday, Doris. God bless. And thank you.
Liz, we really appreciate it. I'd also like to add that the likelihood of us allowing them to forget our names after all is said and done, not going to happen. Alrighty, so we do have an award to present today, so I'd like to introduce you to another one of our Doris members. Her name is Kim Hansen. Take it away, sweetheart.
Hello, everyone. Again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy lives and schedules to be here to celebrate Doris with us. I was asked to say some words about how I felt about the situation, and I didn't write anything down because I felt I was going to be inspired by all of you, and the words would come to me. So here's what comes to me. I've lived in Neshannock Station my whole life, and I can remember driving through there often because my aunt lived on the other side of it, and I can remember as kids pressing our noses to the glass of the car to hopefully get a glimpse of either her or the camels, anything, because she was so intriguing. And that was such a fabric of our childhood. I was blessed to be able to go to the gardens on many, many occasions. I have very, very vivid memories of specific places, and as I'm sure most of you have as well. When I first read about this in the paper, that they were going to destroy the gardens, I was as disgusted as most of you probably are, and the fact that they accomplished that and plotted that when they promised that they were going to restore it. I can't even believe that we're still standing here thinking that should never have happened. So when this came, that they announced that they were going to tear down the house, it's really not fair that they had 10 years at least to plot this, to plan this, And essentially, we had a month to prepare our rebuttal, and that's just outgunned, outnumbered, outspent, out everything. As Liz very well put it, that they're spending her own money to destroy her legacy is abominable. Doris, again, was mostly about preservation. She wanted people to enjoy what she had. She wanted to share what she had. She wanted to see things preserved and kept as examples. As, again, she set up the foundation in Newport to preserve a lot of that town. She was very much involved in all of that, whether anonymously or putting her name on something. She always did it right. She always did it well. And she always welcomed the public as far as into her gardens and anything that she was a part of. So for that, I would like to recommend the Duke Foundation as well as Doris Duke Charitable Foundations for taking the ball and running in the wrong direction. They have taken her legacy and her money and her trust, and they have turned it against the people who care most about her. I would also hazard to guess that most of them didn't even know Doris. They didn't grow up in this area. They don't have the same tied to the estate and to the land as the rest of us do. Certainly, the people who worked in her gardens have a kinship that's obviously still exists. They're all still here. They're here today to fight for her, and they have been here through this whole process. That's not a gift that anyone takes lightly. So I would like to recommend the Duke Foundation as well as the Charitable Foundation for the Demolition Award. Unfortunately, this is not a award that one should want. The fact that you have plotted for 10 years and have done things 10 years without public eye or knowledge and have sprung it on us like this is despicable, and this is not what Doris would have wanted. And for that, we would like to give you, and Mr. Edward Henry, you're the president of the Doris Duke Charitable Foundation. Shame on you. Shame on you for directing this, shame on you for orchestrating this, and shame on you for encouraging this. I would also guess that you've not ever visited the house or the property, nor did you grow up here, so you don't know how important it is to all of us. So shame on all of you, and we recommend you for the most despicable award possible. Thank you for taking the time for being here today. Thank you.
I think we all know this one's name.
Ed Henry. That's the name that everybody needs to know, because Ed Henry is the problem. Michael Catania is a puppet. Henry is the person running the show. And that's how we want to begin to focus some of our attention. I just do have a speech, so I think I'll just read it or not, but I feel like after a lot of what's been said, there's sort of a disturbing attitude that people might be losing faith. And I don't want to see that happen, and I don't think it's necessary, and I also don't think that we have lost yet, okay? I'm proud to say that I'm a Doris member and your attorney. As we're fighting now the demolition of the Doris Duke homestead, it's interesting because we speak with many people, and you've heard this. There's this prevailing and nagging question that emerges from the Duke Farms property. You speak to one person, Liz will talk to you about the gardens going, the Garden of Nations, the closing of the greenhouses, now the gutting of the house. And by the way, demolition is demolition. The only difference is that now they are demolishing the house from the inside out as opposed to demolishing it from the outside in. And that's what I've got to make clear to the court when we get into court. They're simply suggesting that these are permits to take things and salvage, but they are demolishing the house right now. So the result is the same. So you begin to realize that there's a pattern of an erosion of the nibbling away of so many of the distinct features of the Duke estate by the Duke Farms Foundation. But let's remember one thing, the Duke's Farms Foundation is simply a child of the Doris Duke Charitable Foundation. And that's why they get the award. And Mr. Ed Henry is the president. Mr. Ed Henry, by the way, is the president of both of those. And the trustees are the same for both of them. So this nonprofit, situated in New York City, it completely controls the financial, if not every other decision made by Duke Farms. Suffice to state that every penny of Duke Farms' operation is controlled by the Doris Duke Charitable Foundation. So this chipping away at the rock that used to be the amazing manifestations of the Duke estate has culminated with the township's approval to allow the demolition of Doris Duke's home. I'm going backwards a little bit, but how many people remember the American Revolution? This proposal to tear down and destroy Doris Duke's homestead is no different than what the causes were of the American Revolution. And here's why. The people in this country became tired of decisions being made for them by a government that continued to take away their rights, their freedoms, and the ability to participate in decisions that affected their lives and their future. These people, our ancestors, got pushed and pushed until they decided no more. So this ragtag group of citizens stood up and organized, and while they were not exactly ready to fight, they knew they had a valid cause. Most importantly, they had determination. Determination to fight, and I say to all of you, not give up, even when it seemed the odds were against them, and even when it seems like the odds are against us. Well, for all of you here who have watched the gradual destruction of the Duke estate by a bunch of out-of-touch New Yorkers, we say clearly and definitively, this is it. This is the big one. This is where we, and I want all of you to say, we draw the line. Everybody in this community and across the region and the state is tired of being pushed around as we watch this amazing place lose almost everything that made it great. Doris Duke's homestead will not be torn down, not on our watch. And we're here to tell you we're not giving up without a fight. And I want all of you to make sure that you think that also. We're not giving up without a fight. Because this fight, realistically speaking, is about patriotism. Hillsborough patriotism, Somerset County patriotism, New Jersey patriotism, and United States patriotism. Right? This fight's about our pride in a place that the foundation people are continuously taking away. This fight's about our community and the foundation tearing away at the fabric that made our community and this place so unique. This fight's about our history and our future. And that's what's interesting, right? It's the history, but it's also the future. And about fairness and about the ability to be involved in decisions that affect how we as residents and our community protect its history, its architecture, and ultimately our economy. The part that they don't get is that this is about our economy too, if allowed to be restored. It's also a fight about an out-of-touch charitable nonprofit that pays itself bloated salaries while it ignores the needs of respecting its own reason for existence and the community that it operates in Hillsborough, and towards protecting what is still an amazingly historic place known as the Duke Estate. So, I think this fight's also about inclusion and not tolerating a public charity making secret decisions, like abandoning the house in 2008 and leaving the public in the dark until 2015. We will be polite. I'll try to be professional. I've been told that I'm not, but I'm working on it. We'll be respectful to everyone. I'm working on that one too. But make no mistake about this issue. We're here for the long haul, and I hope you're all here for the long haul, and this outrageous proposal will be fought by us in growing numbers, because it is. There's more and more people, and every time you talk to somebody, they say, that's outrageous, how can they be doing that? So we've got to get more people. I have a quote from Winston Churchill from a different war. I'll just say, we shall fight on the beaches, and we shall never surrender. Okay, there's a lot more in between, but we'll just leave it at that. I think it's safe to state that their behavior has outraged so many people from all walks of life that we stand united, and we will be collectively showing that we're not going to take it anymore. I think it's interesting to note that our group has a cross-section of all different kinds of people and all different kinds of ages. And interestingly enough, I can confidently say that we have Democrats and Republicans. So this is not a political thing, it's a people thing. Anyway, back to the American Revolution. We all know how the American Revolution turned out. Somehow that ragtag group of citizens marshaled the hearts and the minds of the rest of their fellow citizens, and the world was changed forever. Well, if you didn't realize it, those parallels that I'm talking about relate to us. Okay, they may think of us as ragtag citizen group, but we've got determination and we're going to fight. So you all know we've now filed a lawsuit in Superior Court to stop the demolition. We will hopefully be heard very soon. We were heard on Friday, but it was not exactly the way it was built. So all that happened with the judge, by the way, was she decided that she didn't think we were in the right place. And when I called on Thursday to get this set up, I tried to get some clarity from them, or are we in the right place? But apparently we weren't. So now we're in the right place. We'll hopefully hear very soon, tomorrow or Tuesday, and be back into court to convince the judge that the demolition is illegal and must be stopped. But here's the thing, we need your help. Tell your friends, tell your coworkers, call your elected officials, write letters to the editors of your local and national papers. Come to the meetings that we're having. Friend us on Doris, our Facebook page, sign the petition at change.org, and if you can, for whatever you can, here's the sales pitch, please contribute some money. Because fighting costs money, unfortunately. We now have a Doris account. We also have a GoFundMe.com account. Remember one thing, we're all volunteers, but we still are stuck with filing fees, the costs of filing fees, I should say, transcripts and other costs to make this fight even function. For everybody's benefit, we've now raised $2,400 of funds to support the fight. But that's not even going to pay for the transcripts that we have to order. So, one more thing for everybody who I haven't said this to already. Do you know any famous people, actors, musicians, television personalities? Please get in touch with them and ask them if they will help. That can make all the difference. So, they said it couldn't be done. And this, they're saying it can't be done. But we're here to tell you it can be done. And I think we need your help as citizens of the great township, county, and state to stand up and be counted literally to help us protect what is our history and one of the reasons why Hillsborough is one of the best places to live. How many times have you heard that? They keep saying that. Hillsborough is one of the best places to live in the United States. Well, guess what? If they keep going the way they're going, that's going to change, and that's going to change pretty quickly. I think it's also interesting to note, by the way, when you go on the internet and you type in Hillsborough, one of the first pictures that comes up is a picture from Duke Farms. So they're selling it, but they're helping to destroy it at the same time. Thank you, everybody, and happy birthday, Doris.
All right, guys, so I won't take up too much of your time. We have a beautiful cake from Shop Right Here for Doris' birthday. Take pictures, go crazy, because we're going to be cutting it in a few minutes, and of course we will be celebrating happy birthday with the traditional happy birthday song. So take your pictures while it's still in one piece, because it's going to go quickly, guys.
You knew it outside.